Good evening, everybody. So let's start by cultivating our motivation. Again, appreciating this life that we have, because it ends very quickly, goes by very, very quickly. And it's quite a remarkable opportunity to practice, to put good imprints in our mind stream. We don't know when we're going to get this kind of opportunity again. And so it's really, really important to make good use of it. And so the first step in doing that is to detach ourselves from the claws of the 8 worldly concerns. And those claws are not the external objects, they're the internal attachment and aversion that's completely hooked onto the happiness of this life. So we have to pull our mind out of thinking that the happiness of this life is the most important thing in the universe. Our own personal happiness of this life right now. And instead really enlarge our mind and think about the happiness of future lives, a different kind of happiness, happiness of liberation and enlightenment, the happiness of benefiting other sentient beings. And by enlarging our mind to see those other kinds of happiness, let's aspire for them and then release the clinging to the happiness of this life. And aspire that all sentient beings can have the happiness of full enlightenment. So let's generate that right now. So if we look, the 8 worldly concerns are really a big troublemaker, or 8 big troublemakers, yeah? And they not only get in the way of our Dharma practice, but they make us totally miserable right now. Yeah, because our mind is completely hooked into my happiness now from external things. So I want my room to look like this, and I want people to act like this, and I want this kind of food, and I want to wear this kind of clothes, and I want the temperature in the room to be like this, and I want the temperature of the hot water in the shower to be like this. And I don't like when people squint at me, and I don't like when they don't say hello, and I don't like the snow when it's melting and slippery, and, you know, I don't like this, and I don't like that, and just this litany of I want, I don't like, okay? Constant. And of course, all the things we're craving for and craving to get away from disappear in the very next moment, you know? But we spend our whole life just so worried about all these things, you know? The mind just worries and spins around, and what if this, and what if that, and oh, maybe this, and maybe that, and, you know, but all the worries that we're all wrapped up in are all having to do with our pleasure of this life. Yeah? So, you know, it makes us terribly miserable, and then of course we waste our precious human life. So rather than accumulating merit, and freeing ourselves of negativities, we accumulate negativities and free ourselves from happiness. You know? So it's really self-sabotaging. You know? But there's one part of our mind that is so hooked into the happiness of this life that, you know, we're afraid if we don't have it that we're just going to croak. You know, that life just cannot go on. Yeah, or I am going to be so miserable. But if we really step back, it's only our mind telling us this. It doesn't really have anything to do with the situation. Because lots of times we wind up being happy in situations that we thought we were going to be miserable in. And that happens when we let go of the mind that says, I'm going to be miserable. Yeah. Okay, so we really have to, you know, stop trying to rearrange our samsaric duckies. Because it just doesn't work. Yeah, because you no sooner get your little ducky in place than, you know, change happens and your ducky, you know, goes out of order. And then you have to scurry to get it back in place. So, but it doesn't want to go in the line you set it in. And then you finally get it in that line and you don't want it there anymore. You changed your mind. So, you know, the whole thing is just useless. Yeah. So that doesn't mean that happiness in this life is bad. That's not true. Did you hear that one? I'm looking at all the ex-caths. Okay, happiness of this life is not bad. Our problem is when we get attached to it. Okay? So, we're trying, you know, we're going through the methods now for generating bodhicitta. One of the biggest hindrances for generating bodhicitta are the 8 worldly concerns. You know, and we'll get into this when we get into the part of equalizing and exchanging self and others, because when we talk about the disadvantages of the self-centeredness, what does our self-centeredness twirl around? The 8 worldly concerns. Yeah? Doesn't it? Yeah, completely twirls around that. And it makes us miserable, and then we have no ability to look, you know, beyond our own nose and care about anybody else. Because we're too busy, you know, saying, I don't like this color carpet, you know. Or, you know, the cat puts too much fur on the carpet. Or, you know, you should become blue and then your fur mat would match the carpet, you know. And so we get into all sorts of things that are really ridiculous. Okay, so we've been talking about the 2 ways to generate bodhicitta. What are the 2 ways? First one? 7-point instruction, cause and effect. Second one? Equalizing, exchanging self and others. Okay, what's the preliminary to the 7-point instruction of cause and effect? Equanimity. And what does equanimity mean in that sense? Open, concerned mind, and you're not having attachment for friends, aversion for enemies, and apathy towards strangers. Okay, and then the 7 points. First one. Seeing all beings as our mother. Second. Seeing their kindness as our mother. Third, wanting to repay it. Fourth, heartwarming love. Fifth, compassion. Sixth, great resolve. And bodhicitta. Okay, you should be able to recite these in your dreams. Okay, try it tonight. Okay. Or if you wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, then try and remember these, okay? Yeah. Okay, so last time we talked about equanimity, and we also talked about how sentient beings have been our mothers, but we don't recognize them from one life to the next. And then we started talking about the kindness of our mother. Okay, and the kindness of our father too. We're in a gender equal age. Okay, but the kindness in their giving us the body, giving us an education, giving us enjoyment, and taking care of us. Okay, and so really thinking about that, making it very, very personal, you know, so that we really have this feeling of being the recipient of a tremendous amount of love. Okay? And so seeing their kindness to us, because we were a total stranger when we moved in. Yeah, weren't we? You know? I mean, people always think, oh, it's my baby when they have a kid. Actually, it's a total stranger. Yeah? Knocking on your body, saying, I'm moving in for the next 18 to 40 years. Yeah? I'll be born from your body in 9 months, but after that, you're not going to get rid of me so easy. Okay? And actually, we're total strangers when we get reborn into somebody's family. And yet they look at us, and they're so happy to see us. You know, everybody thinks babies are cute. Yeah? So they always pick us up. Oh, look. And I'm amazed, you know, my friends who have babies, it's like the way they look at their kids, it's like nobody else on this planet has ever had a baby. You know? Really, have you ever looked at parents? You know, nobody has ever had a baby. Nobody has ever seen anything that is quite as adorable and unique and precious as this, you know, pooping, peeing, crying machine. Yeah. And they just love us to bits. And what do? We poop and we pee and we cry. And they love us. Imagine that. Isn't that astounding? Yeah. I mean, if one of us somebody came to the Abbey and pooped and peed and cried, would we have that kind of attitude towards them? Yeah. So, I mean, our parents have been really incredible towards us, you know, and thinking that we're so adorable. Okay? Even if they've had many kids before us, you know, kind of the youngest one is just so adorable till another one comes along. Yeah? But then we're still adorable too. So just really seeing that and feeling the kindness of others and being aware of, you know, if they didn't take care of us when we were little, we wouldn't be able to take care of ourselves now. Yeah? It's only because they taught us and protected us and all these kinds of things that we function in the adult world. Okay? So when we see sentient beings as our parents, and see their kindness, then automatically the third step of wanting to repay their kindness, that one kind of comes automatically. Yeah, because, I mean, human beings are like that. When we see ourselves as the recipient of kindness, then we want to repay it. So it's very good. Meditate a lot on the kindness of our parents, and then want to repay that kindness. And not just the kindness of the parents of this life, but remember that all sentient beings have been our parents, and repay their kindness. Okay, even though they aren't our parents in this life, wanting to repay our kindness. And then thinking about what are beneficial ways to repay their kindness. Okay. We might try and do everything our parents want us to do, or be everything they want us to be. But is that necessarily the best way to repay their kindness? because we have to think beyond this lifetime. Yeah? We might please our parents this lifetime, in the process create a lot of negative karma, have a lower rebirth next life, and they might have a lower rebirth as well. And then what good was our trying to please them in this life? Didn't really benefit them, it didn't really benefit us. Okay? So while we try and help sentient beings in this life as much as we can, we also have to have a big mind thinking about how to benefit them beyond this lifetime. Okay? And so from wanting to repay their kindness comes the fourth one, which is heartwarming love. And heartwarming love is seeing sentient beings as worthy of affection, as affectionable, okay? As beings that you have affection for. And so having this feeling of that they are heartwarming. Yeah, like when you see somebody that you just think is so precious, then you have this feeling of a warm heart towards them, and good wishes, and care and concern. And so feeling that for everybody equally, because remember, we've gotten rid of the attachment for friends, aversion for enemies, and apathy towards everybody else. And we've trained our mind to see everybody as having been kind to us in their previous lifetimes when they've been our parents. And we want to repay that kindness, and so we see them all as being very precious and very worthy of our affection. Okay? And then from there, we go on to compassion. Yeah? Now, heartwarming love and love are a little bit different, because heartwarming love is seeing sentient beings in beauty, and it necessarily must come before compassion. Because we can't have compassion if we just think sentient beings are creeps. Okay, we have to see them in beauty first. So heartwarming love must come before compassion. But regular love is the wish for others to have happiness. Compassion is the wish for them to be free of suffering, and there's no fixed order in which we generate those. Yeah, some people may generate compassion first, wanting them to be free of suffering, so that they can then want them to have love, which is happiness, to have happiness, which is love. Okay, other people may generate them at the same time, or may want them to be happy and then think, oh, but they need to be free of suffering in order to be happy. So love and compassion don't have a fixed order, but heartwarming love has to come before compassion. Okay? Now, there's some little, the first 3 points, yeah, of seeing sentient beings as our mother, remembering their kindness and wanting to repay it, those are the basis for generating the aspiration to benefit others. Okay, so by meditating on those, we're imbuing our mind with the basis for having the aspiration to benefit them. Okay, then love and compassion are actual attitudes that want to benefit them, because with love we want them to be happy, with compassion we want them to be free of suffering. Okay, and so those, and then the 2 great resolves, which we're going to come to next, step number 7. Okay, they're the actual thoughts that decide to work for others. Okay, so love and compassion are the first 3 are the basis for generating the aspiration to benefit them. Love and compassion are the wishes to benefit them. The 2 great resolves, which I'm going to get into, are the actual thoughts that decide to benefit them. And then bodhicitta is the aspiration to attain full enlightenment in order to be able to benefit them. Okay? So there's a sequence going on here. Okay, so love and compassion are the actual attitudes wanting to benefit them. Love wanting them to be happy, compassion wanting them to be free of suffering. Then from there we get the sixth point, which is called great resolves. And there's two great resolves. One of them is based on love, and it says, I myself are going to bring happiness to sentient beings. And the other one is based on compassion, saying, I myself am going to free them from suffering. So the great resolve is taking some responsibility for bringing this about. Okay? So, yeah, you have a question?
Yeah, because first you said that it was heartwarming love, and now you're referring to love as in the normal sense.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
So which one is it?
Well, I'm referring to love in the normal sense when I'm saying it's the actual method to benefit sentient beings.
Since you're talking about it as the fourth and fifth step of aspiration.
Yeah, well, they kind of, you know, they...
Aspiration, would it, if you're just heartwarming love?
Yeah, the fourth one's heartwarming love, but then they kind of slip in regular love too. Okay. So the great resolve is, you know, the aspiration to actually do something about it. Okay? Now, it's very important that our love and compassion are stable and that they're generated for all sentient beings. Okay? Because if they're partial, then that indicates that there's going to be love, there's going to be attachment and aversion involved. And when there's attachment and aversion involved, our love and compassion are not stable. Okay? We can see that very clearly in our daily life, can't we? Yeah? When there's attachment for somebody, then wanting them to be happy comes very easy, but the moment they do something that we don't like, we stop wanting them to be happy. Yeah, the love is not stable when we're attached to them. So this is why that equanimity is so important, and why seeing all of them as having been our mothers and been kind to us equally is very important, so that we really see sentient beings equal in this respect and free ourselves from the attachment and the aversion. Okay, so that's one point to be real careful of when we're generating love and compassion. Okay, a second point is this thing of personal distress and personal agenda. Okay, so I want them to be happy, and then my personal agenda is in the way that I think they should be happy. So go to college, get a job, marry this person, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Our agenda for the other person. Yeah. That's not what we're talking about. Because there we can see there's attachment involved, there's a personal agenda involved. It's not genuine love that wants them to be happy simply because they exist. And similarly with compassion, we have to make sure that personal distress doesn't get involved, whereby we see others suffering and then we feel so distressed by it that we can't stand it. And then the focus of things switches to us and our painful feeling, and we've really forgotten about the pain of the other person, and it becomes more, I can't stand to see them suffer. Okay, if we're going to work for the benefit of sentient beings, we need to be able to bear seeing them suffer. Not because we're causing the suffering, but because we can't push a button and get rid of it. Okay, so it's kind of like, you know, those of you who are in the helping professions, I mean, you know, as a nurse and as a physical therapist, sometimes, I mean, you have to be able to see and bear your patient's suffering, because you're trying to help them, but you can't make it all go away at once. Yeah, the body just doesn't work that way. And if you got so distressed at seeing their suffering that you said, I can't stand it, then they don't have a nurse and they don't have a therapist. Okay, so you have to be able to bear seeing their suffering and still want to help them, and be okay with knowing that you can't get rid of it all at once, okay? And so that's really important in order to generate the bodhicitta, because it's going to take a long time to lead sentient beings to enlightenment. I mean, look at how long it's taking the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to lead us to enlightenment, and we're not even there yet. And they've been working since beginningless time. Okay? And they've been watching us go up and down in samsara from the heavenly realm to the hell realm, you know, a myriad of times. And I'm sure they can't bear to see us suffer, but somehow they bear it because they haven't dropped us and said, you know, trying to benefit this one, trying to lead them to enlightenment, but look what she's doing again. You know, stupid thing. You know, forget this one. They don't do that. So we have to have that same kind of attitude that doesn't give up on sentient beings. Even though we know that we're not going to be able to fix it, even though we can so clearly see what they need to do, and they don't, just as the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas very clearly see what we need to do, and we're like this. Okay? So we have to have this long-term attitude really, you know, hanging in there and wanting to benefit over the long term. Another thing to be careful of with love and compassion and the great resolve is wanting them to repay our kindness. Yeah, I've helped you. Don't you have any gratitude? What did I do to deserve you? And look at the way you're treating me after everything I've done for you. Oh, God. Yeah, do I have the accent right? Hey! I worked so hard for you. What did I do to deserve this? Okay, so not doing that ourselves, okay? Because it's very tempting, isn't it? Yeah. Especially when we have the script down because other people have said it to us. to then switch it and say, now I'm trying to help them, and you know, they're so ungrateful. Okay? And so here we have to remember that the point is for us to repay their kindness. That's the third step, wanting to repay their kindness. Yeah, there is no step in this process that says getting them to repay our kindness. So we have to stay focused on the thing that we are repaying their kindness. So if we're going to see things in terms of debt, it's not them owing us something for what we do for them. It's us owing them something for everything they've done for us in previous lives and everything they're doing for us in this life. Okay? So if you have that idea of debt, it should go that way. Okay? Because then if you just have that mind that says, I want to repay the kindness, I want to repay the kindness, your mind is focused on that, and it's not focused on how are they treating me in return. Okay? So that's what we need to be careful of. Yeah. Now, sometimes we do notice that other people are not treating us very well in return. We have to be able to endure it, or if we see that they're not treating us well in return is making them degenerate, then we have to find a skillful way to help them for their benefit to change their attitude. Not because we need them to change their attitude, but because when they take things for granted or act in a certain way, it degenerates their own mental state. Okay? You getting what I mean? Okay? So, then when we have these two great resolves, you know, I'm getting involved, I'm committed to bringing about their happiness and removing their suffering. Here we're seeing happiness and suffering not as the happiness of and suffering of the 8 worldly concerns. Okay, this also is very, very important. Okay, because if we're just wanting to bring people the happiness of the 8 worldly concerns, that kind of happiness is very, very limited. Okay? So of course, if people are hungry, we want to give them food, and if they need a home, to give them a home, and so on and so forth like that. But if we really want to benefit them over a long time, if we can lead them on the Dharma path and teach them the Dharma, or help them to learn some spiritual path that will be beneficial for them, then that is a very, very great way to benefit them and give them happiness and to liberate them from suffering, because there we're working with the real cause of happiness and suffering, the afflictions and the karma. Because you see, unless we have that idea, when we want sentient beings to be happy and free of suffering, to work in terms of liberating them from afflictions and karma, unless we have that idea to do that, there's no way we're ever going to be able to bring about their happiness and liberate them from suffering. Because we may give them, I mean, it's so interesting. You can see sometimes somebody really needs help, other people give them the help, they can't see it, or their karma interferes and they can't receive the help. Or it gets wasted, or something happens. And so we really need to work on the karmic level, which means working on the mental level of a virtuous and non-virtuous thoughts and intentions, in order to really benefit them over a long period of time. Okay? So you can see this sometimes, like when we give foreign aid, we give foreign aid to countries in a civil war, and then all the armies take the food, and the food doesn't get to the people that it's meant for. So there you can see that you have to do something about the armies and bring about peace if you want people to be fed. But also you have to look at the karma of those people who have people who want to give them food, but the food can't get to them because of the armies. Okay? So there's so many interdependent factors going on there, and we have to be able to work with all of them. Yeah? But really working in terms of karma, which means teaching sentient beings how to avoid negative karma and how to create positive karma, that's so important, you know. And to do that on the basic level, you know, because that's the basic level of our practice, isn't it? Abandon non-virtue, create virtue. Then, but that too, that's good, and that's going to be much more effective in the long term than working for their 8 worldly concerns. You know, but then we have to teach them how to be free of the afflictions altogether. Because if they aren't free of the afflictions altogether, they're going to keep getting reborn in samsara again and again and again. Sometimes in upper realms, sometimes in lower realms. Okay? And then if we really care about all sentient beings, we'll want to lead everybody to enlightenment so that there's more Buddhas working for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay? So we really have to have a big mind. Don't just think when we say compassion is wanting them to be free of suffering, that suffering means the ouch suffering. Think of the dukkha of change. Think of the pervasive dukkha that pervades everything in cyclic existence. Yeah, if you just see suffering as the ouch kind of suffering, you're not going to be able to benefit sentient beings most completely. Okay? And you hear me say this over and over and over again. And that's because we keep thinking of suffering as, you know, I stuck myself, or I hit my thumb with the hammer or something like that. Yeah. So we really have to think big. And if we think big like that, then we can look at somebody who's wealthy and we can look at somebody who's impoverished, and we can have equal love and compassion for both of them. Yeah. Because the wealthy one is only wealthy temporarily. Yeah. So everybody's going to change places. Another 100 years, we'll all be gone. All be born in different realms, different situations, maybe completely change places. So, we have to have that big mind that doesn't discriminate amongst sentient beings. Okay. And then as I was saying before with bodhicitta, that the aspiration to benefit sentient beings most effectively is the causal aspiration, and that bodhicitta itself is focused on, its object is enlightenment, and so the aspiration to attain enlightenment is the one that actually accompanies the bodhicitta. And so similarly, compassion doesn't accompany bodhicitta, it's a cause of bodhicitta. Okay? So remember, when we talk about a primary mind has certain mental factors that are associated with it, or mental factors that are concomitant. Yeah? So compassion isn't concomitant with bodhicitta, it's a cause of bodhicitta, which means it comes before bodhicitta. It doesn't mean when you get bodhicitta you stop having compassion. I mean, you generate bodhicitta and then other times you might meditate again on compassion. Okay? Doesn't mean your compassion has stopped. It just means it isn't fully manifest when you have bodhicitta. But the mind, the mind has compassion, this person has compassion. Okay? Okay, so those are the 7 points of 7-point instruction of cause and effect. The first 6 are the cause, bodhicitta is the effect. Okay. So, questions? Yeah.
I have a couple, but one of them is, in thinking about equanimity, especially the way you talked about it last week, it almost seems that you have to have a pretty strong understanding of emptiness to even be able to develop, to go anywhere.
Yeah. Okay, so to develop equanimity, when we think of not having attachment and aversion, it seems like you must have some awareness of emptiness. I think that the more awareness of emptiness you have, it benefits all these meditations. And there's not going to be somebody who gets to this point in the Dharma without any awareness of emptiness, because everybody's heard teachings on emptiness at one point or another, haven't they? Yeah. So, it's interesting because often when we hear the stages of the path, we get the idea that you do this one and then you finish it completely before you get to that one. And you finish that one completely before you get to this one. And you can't do this one before you've completed that one. And it's not like that. All these things really interplay and influence each other a lot. Okay? Yeah.
So my other question is, you hear that once you have that instant of bodhicitta, then you become a bodhisattva, which has the implication that having that realization of bodhicitta means that it now is lasting to some extent?
Wait a minute, who said you had an instant of bodhicitta and that's the realization of bodhicitta?
Well, maybe that's a misunderstanding, but somehow I've heard
yes,
that
it
once
is.
you generate bodhicitta, that's when you enter the doorway of becoming a bodhisattva.
Yeah, yes, but when it's not just generating bodhicitta. We generate bodhicitta every morning, don't we?
Really generate bodhicitta.
Yeah. Okay, so there's fabricated bodhicitta and there's unfabricated bodhicitta. We generate fabricated bodhicitta all the time. Yeah, even unfabricated bodhicitta. Yeah, the first time you get it, does that mean it's never gonna go away?
No.
No, you have to make that very, very strong. Okay, so it's not just one instant of unfabricated bodhicitta and, you know, now you're good to go forever.
So when do you become a bodhisattva?
Okay, when you enter the path of accumulation, when you have a stable bodhicitta. Okay, that doesn't mean you can never lose it, because on the small path of accumulation, you still have, it's still possible to lose it. But to enter the path of accumulation, the first of the bodhisattva path, you have to have a bodhicitta that's stable enough so that, you know, when you see sentient beings, your reaction to them is, I want to attain enlightenment in order to benefit them. Okay? So your mind is very well drenched in that, and you don't have to spend hours cultivating it. Okay? It's like unfabricated. Okay? So it's good to know that, you know, because, for example, when His Holiness, he does the ceremony of aspiring bodhicitta with us, and we all generate bodhicitta in His Holiness's presence. Does that mean we all become bodhisattvas? No, because as soon as we're out the door, it's like, you know, get out of my way. Yeah. But it's good that we did that, isn't it? Because it put a good imprint on our mind. And so that's why we generate bodhicitta again and again before each of our meditation sessions, every time when we wake up in the morning, you know, before every activity, we try again and again to familiarize our mind with that. But what we want is that, you know how when you see something that's beautiful, how attachment comes in your mind like that? That's what you want your bodhicitta to be like.
Wow.
Yeah? When you see a suffering sentient being, yeah. Okay? Yeah.
And a remark and a question. Kind of the remark was like, these days, kind of thinking about doing something and then repaying kindness. I realized that there is kind of a gap between your action and someone repaying your kindness. It's as if, I don't know, something stupid like you take off your socks and you would expect an apple to fall or something. Like there's no really link, any link between them. So then when we would expect others to, or anyway, to repay kindness is something stupid.
Repaying kindness is something stupid?
No, like if you would expect someone to repay
I see. Okay, so you're saying expecting somebody to repay your kindness is rather silly, because what you do and what others...
Yeah, it's like, what would be the relationship between those? Like, you know, there's not a cause and effect relationship by any...
Oh, okay, so you're saying, so you're saying that when we show kindness to others, it's not necessarily a cause and effect relationship that therefore they're going to show kindness back. So expecting them to show kindness back is rather silly. Yeah, quite definitely. Yeah. But our deluded mind thinks that there is a cause and effect relationship.
And the question I wanted to ask is, so we said someone entering the path of accumulation of the bodhisattva, and then there is the smaller path, and that I suppose refers to the hearers and solitary realizers, right?
No. When we're talking about there's 5 paths of the bodhisattva, 5 paths of the hearers, 5 paths of the solitary realizers. The bodhisattva path of accumulation, which you enter when you've generated the spontaneous bodhicitta, it has 3 parts to it. The small part of the path of accumulation, the medium, and the great part. On that small part, your bodhicitta isn't 100% stable, and it's possible to lose it by getting really fed up with some sentient being. It's interesting because often what discourages us from attaining enlightenment is thinking the path is too long, or the enlightenment is too high. You know, looking at the path and looking at the result and thinking that they're beyond us. But and so that often inhibits us from practicing. But what's very interesting, whenever they talk about losing your bodhicitta, it's always done from the perspective of getting angry at some sentient being who doesn't treat you right. I've never heard it explained as you start thinking that enlightenment's too high and you want to give up on that. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine somebody doing that, but they never explain it that way. They always explain it in terms of looking at some sentient being and saying, I am fed up, I am never working for that one's benefit. That's the one they caution us about as being, you know, particularly dangerous.
How would someone how would they differentiate between the three levels, the small, the medium?
The small, the medium, how do you differentiate between them?
I wouldn't expect a clear word.
Yeah, I forget. It must have to do with the amount of merit that you've accumulated on each part. And kind of, you know, well, one part has to do with how stable your bodhicitta is. And so it has to do with the amount of merit. It has to do with also how close you're getting to having a union of serenity and insight focused on emptiness. That would also be a discriminating factor between the three parts of the path of accumulation. Because somebody who's newly entered the bodhisattva path, on the path of accumulation, they don't go to the path of preparation until they have a union of serenity and insight focused on emptiness. And so if they haven't, you know, realized emptiness before, or, you know, if their concentration isn't real stable, then they are working on that during the path of accumulation. And then accumulate, it's called path of accumulation because you accumulate merit. Yeah, because on the bodhisattva path, you know, it's the accumulation of merit that acts as the sustaining force that pushes you to the next path, but you actually go to the next path in terms of, you know, your realization of emptiness, how that's coming along, and how capable that is of counteracting afflictions. Okay. Oh, Archie. He's licking my feet.
I don't quite know how to ask the question, but when you were talking about, you know, there's the option of enduring the suffering that we're receiving as a result of someone harming us, and then there's the using skillful means to find the best way after seeing that they themselves are degenerating. But it seems like, or at least in my experience, that it's always very messy and it's really hard to get to the place where, yes, logically I want to benefit someone, but at the same time I feel so habituated and you've hurt me and there's some repayment.
Yeah, okay. So what I was saying before is that sometimes if you see sentient beings who they have harmed you, and you see that is making them degenerate. So you might want to help them stop that behavior. And you're saying that it gets really messy because we're so habituated with, you hurt me, or I'm offended, and then we go, and therefore, for their benefit, I'm going to help them change. Okay? So it gets very messy because really there's one motivation going on in our mind, which is quite a self-centered one, a hurt one. When we're hurt, we're offended, you know, our ego is touched. And then the other thing, which is, you know, well, how can I benefit them? So it's a process of really working with our mind, you know, and we have to see where this afflicted motivation comes in. see how we're contorting the Dharma to make the Dharma match our self-centered mind, and then tell ourselves that is not suitable behavior. Yeah, really turn back and look at the self-centered and say, that is not suitable behavior for me to correct somebody with this kind of motivation. Yeah. So then you have to change your motivation. It's like, you know, a parent taking care of a child. You know, if you're a Dharma practicing parent, Dharma practitioner parent, you know, you hear all of this about, you know, disadvantages of anger, and so, you know, you want to raise your child without being angry. But sometimes you get really ticked off at this kid. So then, do you say to yourself, well, I have such a bad motivation, so therefore I'm not going to do anything? No, you know, because then your kid just runs wild and goes crazy. So then, you know, okay, you have a bad motivation, you correct it as much as you possibly can, and you really work with, you know, I want to help my child as a human being, and you try and generate a good motivation as best as you can, and then you have to do something. Yeah? Okay, so, but then each situation is real different, because we shouldn't get into this thing of, you know, well, all these different people are hurting me and all these different people are offensive, so I've got to correct everybody. You know, because that just is, that's our MO right now, isn't it? Yeah, everybody does what I don't like, so let's correct them for their benefit. Yeah. And that's just getting picky. Okay. Shall we start reading from the book again, or do you have other questions? Anybody online have questions?
I was just starting to type in and ask them if they did, so they did.
Oh. Okay. Well, they should know when I...
They should.
Yeah.
You
Okay. Yeah.
I don't have a question so much, but I want to say that years and years ago, when I first heard you talk about the, you know, seeing everyone as our parents and then looking at the kindness of parents, I had no idea how much just doing that was going to change everything.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly this last year when my mother died, and I was able to be with her, those times of practicing of seeing that became so important and so precious, and gave such a strong base for just going there and being kind to her. No matter what had happened in the past, it was just like it didn't matter anymore. So I really thank you for those, because it made a huge difference. It's just
Okay. Will you come here and say that? I think that's good if everybody hears. Come, Kath. Come on. No. It's very good.
I was just sharing that years ago I heard from Venerable the am I looking at the camera? About these practices about kindness of parents and meditating on it. And I did a lot of meditating on it. It was very hard at first because, like a lot of Westerners, I just grew up feeling like my parents really screwed up and messed up and left me, you know, pretty damaged. And as I worked with the ideas, I could really see the tremendous kindness and tremendous sacrifices that they made to raise us well and did their best. And that meditation, that idea has made huge difference for me. And my mother died this last year, and I was able to be with her while she died. And just, it was very easy to be kind towards her. And just let go of all the other things in the past because of those meditations. So it's just really important to do that. Thank you.
So this meditation might... Oops. This meditation might be difficult sometimes, you know, especially when we start, but it can have a very healing effect on our mind in this life to heal relationships that have been difficult. Yeah. So with our mother, with our father, with our siblings, I mean, anybody we have a relationship with, that where there's some really strong negative feelings, to really try and go back and see their kindness. Because often the person we have negative feelings for is somebody that we've been very close to. And so there has been the opportunity where they've offered us a lot of kindness. Mm-hmm.
The other part of it that has helped me too is that I never saw the kindness of my parents in the face of a lot of physical pain, in the face of a lot of financial challenges, a lot of relationship challenges between the two of them, and just the conditioning of their own lives.
Yeah.
So I always disregarded that and said, well, I don't care. I just, I wanted more time. I wanted more love. I wanted more attention. But when I got to see what they were trying to cope with and raise 3 children at the same time, it just changed my relationship to them also.
Yeah. Do you want to say that? Or yeah, okay, we should get everybody up here now. Yeah, because I think it is much better if you guys say it.
So I was just sharing that in part of my healing process in relationship to my parents is that for years and years I thought of all the love that I didn't get and all the attention and the reprimands and things like that, never even understanding the difficulties that they faced. And it was only by doing this meditation that the kindness that they showed me in the face of, certainly my mom had incredible physical pain due to a car injury that she never recovered from. My father was trying to compete in an economic market where he was about twice the age of most of the men that he was, working with, and that they had their own difficulties in relationships. So they would raise us and take care of us and, educate us in the middle of having a lot of unsurmountable difficulties within their own personal lives, and they were still quite amazing considering what they had to deal with on a lot of different levels.
Okay. Anybody else? It's only 2 minutes. I can't start this.
I just would say that for me, doing the meditations and feeling how it opened up my heart really released me from the anger and the negativity. It really brought so much space in my mind so that I could progress. I was very stuck. It was like I kept hitting the ceiling all the time and couldn't make any progress. And doing that meditation released me. I felt like I was released. So it was very powerful.
Yeah, because it totally changes our whole take on things, doesn't it? Yeah, completely changes it. Okay, so I guess that's it, and then next week we will start on equalizing and exchanging self and others. Okay, so this week spend some time meditating on these topics. Yeah, and especially if you have a teaching and it's fresh in your mind, and if you do some meditation, it can be really quite wonderful.